Good evening, everyone, and good evening, everyone, and thank you all for coming out on this blistering cold night. You know, we put together a Zoom link today because we thought with it being so cold that a lot of people would not come out, but true Highland Park fashion, you guys are here, and thank you for being here. I want to acknowledge some of my council members that are here, and I'm going to start off with Council Member Hirsch. Councilmember George, Councilmember Hale, Councilmember Jason Postelnick, and after all these years, I still can't get his last name right. But I'm being consistent. And I did all the boys first. Oh. And Councilmember Norma Vargas, she's here with us. So again, thank you all for coming out for tonight. Second phase, or our follow-up, I should say, because we started this process a while ago, and we're super excited about the South Third Plaza and having you all here to take hopefully the final look of what we're proposing that has included your comments and suggestions so far. And I'm going to have Councilmember Hale come up and tell you a little bit more about the people that worked on this committee to get this all done, along with Arterio. I'm super excited. We're super excited about this new phase in Highland Park and soon to be the new home of our farmers market and everything else like that. So, and on that note, I'm going to ask Councilmember Hale to come up and talk some more. And people are still coming in. This is really good. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Santa Claus.
Santa Claus, sorry. Thank you, Santa Claus. Because this is a great present.
There you go.
There you go. Okay. So tonight we're here to share a collective vision that we've been working on for almost 5 years, the 3rd Avenue Plaza. I'm going to be brief because we know that you're all here to see pictures and you're all here to see the new design. But I do want to sort of harken back to the idea that the idea for this first came out of COVID when we shut down when we made town tables. Such a good idea, we figured why not just keep it going, and that was sort of the impetus to this. So that's how long we've been working on this. It's really exciting to see this come to fruition. Over the last almost 5 years, we've been navigating DOT permitting, securing funding, drawing pictures on everything from napkins to high-end CAD machines. And a million other small steps to sort of make this community vision a reality. We still have some work to do. We're still going to have some opportunities for comment, particularly tonight. We'll have some a period for people to ask questions and comments and give us your thoughts. But I do want to go back a little bit and just say thank you to so many of the people that have got us here tonight. So the mayor thanked all of the council members. You know, as the chair of the Economic Development Committee, I often get to stand up here and give the opening and the speeches and things like that. But I want everybody to know that this is really a true team effort. Every single member of the council and certainly the mayor has really put some hard work into getting this to where we are today. And so Jason and Norma and Matt and Phil and Stephanie, you know, just I want to say thank you to all of you and to the mayor for all of the hard work and dedication, not just to this, but to all of our redevelopment. I also wanted to say thank you to the various stakeholders and committees that we've put together over the course of these last 4 years. Specifically, I just wanted to say thank you to Rebecca Hirsch and Marcia Schiffman and Mike McKenna, all from Main Street. They've been an integral part of this from day one. Alvin Chen, I don't see Alvin is here, but Alvin is a resident of 3rd Street and also on the planning board. Peter Bilton from Safe Walking and Cycling. Aaron Weinman is a property owner on 3rd Street and also Main Street board member. And Rebecca Hand from the planning board. They formed a stakeholder committee that we really got a great deal of work out of and a great deal of great ideas out of. A lot of committees in town chipped into this, not just Safe Walking and Cycling, Sustainable Highland Park, Shade Tree Advisory, Commission on Universal Access, Historical and Arts Commission, all provided valuable feedback throughout this process. So I wanted to make sure to thank all of them. And of course, it's impossible to get any of this done without the work of our borough professionals, Terry Hovere, our borough administrator and economic development director and assistant economic coordinator, Ratuja Vartek, the really fantastic work that they've all done. But lastly, I just wanted to thank all of you, not just for coming tonight, but coming to all the previous meetings that we've had, to the open houses, to the walking tours, to the chats at the grocery store. A lot of community feedback in this, and it's been really great to sort of come together as a community to get us to this point. So again, thank you to everybody. We really appreciate all that you've done. Certainly appreciate all the people who've worked on this. Certainly appreciate Arterial. I'll leave that for them and for Terry, but I'm going to turn it over to Terry now. She's going to walk through the rest of the day. Thank you very much.
Good evening, everyone. Good to see you out, and I'm pleased to report we have 23 attendees on Zoom and counting, so it's a pretty full house for a frigid evening, so thank you all. I thought I'd just do a little bit of housekeeping. I'll talk about how the meeting format is going to work tonight, give you a little introduction, and then, like Matt said, I'm going to get out of the way and let Arterial do their thing. But for tonight, we're going to go through a presentation by Arterial. James Robato and Jesse Summers are here from Arterial to present, and let them get through their presentation, after which we will have time for public comment and questions. We'll take them at the microphone for the people in person, after which we will turn to Zoom folks to raise their hands and get called upon to ask questions. I would ask that you make your statement or ask your questions, and then we're going to let Arterial respond, or whoever is best suited to answer the question respond, and then you move on and let the next person go. We're not going to do a bunch of back and forth because we have a large group and we want to make sure everybody gets a chance. But if we go through the public comment and there's still time and there's still some questions, people can come back up. All right, and try to keep it to 3 minutes. That's our general rule, and it generally works. So that's the meeting format. The materials for this meeting will be posted on our website. So those of you watching at home or here, if you wanted to get another closer look at any of the slides you're going to see, they'll get up on our website tomorrow. We will also, because we're doing this hybrid, it's being recorded, and I have to thank our camera person, Dennis, for coming in on an off night for that. And we are going to post that on our YouTube channel. So we'll play it on HPTV. So for those folks who aren't able to be here to hear the presentation, they'll have an opportunity to watch it afterwards. And then before I hand it over, I just wanted to kind of fill everybody in with where we are on the project timeline. As you know, we had our public open house. We've had a lot of stakeholder meetings, and you'll hear more about that in a minute. But this is really kind of what we think is a final concept that can work. There will be further refinements as we go into the engineering phase, but essentially we need to make a decision that this is kind of where the things are going to be and how it's generally going to function. And then Arterial and their team will start to do the engineering work that then goes into what we can bid out so that we can get a contractor to build this thing. So there's still some decisions. I'll give you an example. We're meeting with PSE&G in the field in January. So there are going to maybe some adjustments to the plan based on that outcome. Budget's going to be a factor. You know, we may have to make some adjustments based on budget. But in general, we're hoping that what you see here generally works, and we believe it does, and we're really excited to hear what you have to think about it. But then we'll move into the kind of more detailed phase, after which we'll have an opportunity to kind of refine the project. And so with that, I already introduced James and Jesse from Arterial. I'm going to ask James to come up and take it away. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Terry. Appreciate it. It is a little bit funny. I did hear it as I walked up that we're the Jesse James team. So I want to thank everybody for taking some time to join us tonight, especially this close to the holidays. I know time is precious. So for those on Zoom as well, it gets very busy. So we appreciate the time. And we're going to walk through some things to get to the design, which is a little bit later in the presentation. And I know Matt's going to be a little itchy over there in his seat because he's seen some of this before, and he wants to get to the pretty pictures. But we really think it's important to walk through how we arrived there. There was a lot of participation. There was a lot of collaboration, comments and things. And it's important for us to just go through some of that so you understand why we arrived where we arrived. So what we're going to do is just briefly touch on some of the public engagement pieces, some of the highlights, some of the comments that we've heard. along with our own analysis, which brought us to this sort of place this evening. And we really think that it was a collaborative effort. We very much like to work with the community, and it's not our design. We don't come into a place and say, oh, here it is. This is very much a collaborative design concept that comes from all of the feedback that we've heard. So there's a lot to cover, so let's get right into it. This is a slide that we won't hang on for too long. You don't have to read it all, but it just basically represents all the different meetings that we had with all the different folks. So we've heard from a lot of different people, a lot of different perspectives, which is great. It's a challenge for us to try and take all of that and come up with something that is comprehensive, cohesive, and sort of makes everyone from their perspective, makes it work. So these were all the meetings. And the next slide is just high level, kind of boiling down what we've heard. Just key points, not everything, but a lot of it can fall into these buckets. So I'm just going to quickly read those. Accommodate and enhance the Friday farmers market and other community events and programs. Maintain flexibility and provide a variety of seating options that can be both functional and playful. Incorporate shade trees, native trees, and green infrastructure throughout the design. Create a traditional style plaza with pops of contemporary elements. Incorporate public art and highlight the creative culture of Highland Park. Address parking, safety, sanitation, and maintenance concerns. Serve as a flexible four-season gathering space for residents and visitors. I know there's a lot of other comments too, but this is really high level of the things that we were trying to accomplish with the design. So it's important to start here with the existing conditions. So Raritan Ave is up here at the top, Magnolia Street and South Third running vertically. And this is our project here, and this is track C. So the first thing is just that our scope was within this red line. So that was what we were looking at. And I know that there were some thoughts and you know, looking a little bit beyond that. So some of that we got into, but this was the main scope of the project. There's a couple of things that are really important to note here as we're looking at this site and thinking about, you know, creating this future plaza here. One is the driveway accesses to the residential properties along the west side of South Third, and also Speak Music. The various retail buildings that front or have entrances onto South Third, which you can see in these magenta arrows. There was also the adjacent residences here and here to consider and to be sensitive to. There are existing utilities, which Terry mentioned in the beginning, that run on both sides of the street. In an ideal world, we would just say, oh, well, we could put those on the ground and move on. It's not always ideal, and so we're going to see what PSE&G has to say. So regardless, whatever our design is, has to work with whether they stay in place, whether they move a little bit, or they can go away completely. It has to work. Next slide. So another consideration is just looking at this proposed plaza, the parking court, and how this is accessible from a day-to-day standpoint. How do people get here? So driving here or walking here. So this is just a simple diagram that represents both pedestrians and vehicles. So the pedestrians are in the magenta, vehicles are in the orange. So on a day-to-day basis, when this is parking, it could be accessed through South Third off of Magnolia here, through anticipated access through the Rite Aid parking lot. Then from a pedestrian standpoint, obviously off of Raritan Ave, from the plaza itself to the parking court, and walking down Magnolia Street. And I just want to click to this because it's not just a consideration of what's there today, it's how this market may function. So when there is a functioning market here, then how does that potentially change things in the way that people access this? So from a vehicular standpoint, there could be cars parking in the track C parking lot on the streets and things like that. So cars will be coming into these points or parking up along here. So this is a really important point because as people get out of those cars and they walk to the market, they're walking along Raritan Ave and entering. They're walking along Magnolia Street up South Third and entering. And they could possibly walk through here and enter. So what this tells us is that there isn't just one frontage to this space. And it's important to understand that people are accessing it from different points, and the design needs to reflect that and respond to that. So this is something that we felt was key as we started looking at the way that people access this and how it breaks down, is looking at it sort of in a structured format. Like, how does the framework of this space work, or these spaces? Because it's not just one space. So the plaza itself, from Raritan to the edge of Speak Music here, which is important because of that access that needs to be maintained. So essentially, the area that is closed to vehicular traffic needs to stop here so that access is maintained. The streetscape itself needs to be looked at. Now you have a dead-end street. How do you treat that? What do you do with that street? How does that interface with the plaza? How does it interface with the residences? How does it then interface with this new parking lot, which we're calling a parking court, because it will act as a plaza space on market days? So important to see that there are really three spaces here when you think about the framework and the structure of how this all starts to come together. There's definitely 2 slides missing in this, which is okay, because I'll talk through them. And Matt is actually very happy because I got to this a lot sooner than I was planning on it, right? It's really a shame that that is not there. I'm gonna circle back to some of the important elements that I wanted to bring up with the framework plan. And I'm gonna, what's that? Is it past it? Oh, okay. Everybody close your eyes. Okay, here we go. Excellent, this is a lot easier. So we enlarged that framework plan that you saw, just so you can see it a little bit closer. But this is Raritan Ave up here, Magnolia's down here, up south here. So we kind of stripped everything out and looked at, okay, there is a framework here that we're building. So this is that plaza space, this is the street, and this is the parking court. And then the Rite Aid access piece, which again is an easement. It's not our property, but it's something that we explore just to see, can we make that connection? So some of the things that I wanted to talk about on this plan that are really important, because when we get to this point, we start to see that there are opportunities and constraints that move us in a certain direction. And just because it's a constraint doesn't necessarily mean it's a negative thing. It's just going to be a challenge that we have to move in the right direction. And so maintaining this connection between the plaza and the parking court itself was important, right? Because on market days, they're going to be connected. They're going to want to have space here and here. South 3rd Street is going to want to remain open in some capacity and function in some way, shape, or form. So the parking court itself, one of the things that we were told is we want it to be flexible, but we want to max out the number of parking spaces that we have. So this configuration shows, pardon me.
Is there any way to move the code? Because
Yes, you can't see. I think there is.
You know, we can just slide it over and you can pick up the microphone if you can.
Yeah. You tell me when I'm good. Hope this doesn't fall apart as I'm doing this. How's that? Is that any better? Keep going. Does that work? I'll go a little bit more. Okay. I'm just going to go completely sideways. Here we go. Okay.
Better?
Switch. All right. So the parking lot, the parking court, we looked at trying to maximize the number of spaces, because one of the conditions that was placed on us was we need day-to-day parking that we can fit a lot of cars in. But we want it to also be flexible. We want also to have greenery and trees. So, you know, that becomes a difficult thing to balance. So this right now shows kind of maxing that out, but having this important space here at the top of the parking court to connect this plaza space. So, you know, no cars ever being in there, so that this is generous space to make that connection. And then using the rest of this for parking. This gets about 40 spaces, two-way circulation, leaving a 10-foot buffer at the bottom here for landscape and a masonry wall so that it shields this residence here. We wanted to provide a An access point, again, this is an access point. What happens in here is to, be determined exactly, but to be able to punch through and make that connection. Then if you look at South Third, and this plays in with the parking court, we introduced a median down the middle so that it would do a few things. One is that it would help act as a bit of a visual screen to the parking court. So we would landscape this, plant it with trees. So for these residents, the residences here, they're looking out into some trees and not over a parking lot, a nice landscape median. It also then divides the road so that at this point, we can make it one-way circulation and cars can then turn around instead of having this dead end. So cars can come here and circulate around. Other vehicles, cars included, larger vehicles, can come into the parking lot, circulate around, and then back out. For fire access, this was an important one. This dashed line represents what the fire department told us was necessary in order to keep access for any type of emergencies that might occur here. So it's 20 feet clear. So that's what these red dashed lines represent. And the way that we would go about that is using removable bollards, in this case, potentially semi-automated so that they're easy to just push down for access, for quick access onto the site, and then removable up here at Rare and Ave, where it's less concerning to be quick because at that point the event's over. So they could just be your standard removable bollards. The geometry up here at the top of the plaza and Rare and Ave is important because this is regulated by NJDOT. So plans were already submitted and approved this configuration. So we were working with this configuration and just seeing what we could do, keeping the geometry, but maybe to kind of give it some nicer materials to make it fit the plaza space better. But we know from experience that as soon as you get involved with DOT, it's a year. So no matter what you do, it's a year for them to look at it, review it, and get back to you. So from what was told to us, it was something that we didn't want to wait a whole year on DOT to find out what they think. So last but not least that I'll mention is in the structure of the plaza, both the plaza itself, South Third, and the parking court, having electrical hookups in various key locations is important to maintain the flexibility of the plaza. We always try and approach this like in 20 years, when this continues to evolve, we haven't done something, hopefully, that precludes you from doing something in the future. Let's just say you needed electric hookups here for some reason. There's access, right? We don't want to say, oh, well, they're all here, and then something happens here. Now I'm going to put an overlay on top of this, rudimentary, but the idea is to simply put on top of here 10 by 10 tents to see what a potential market configuration could look like. Now, I want to make sure that everyone understands we're not laying out the market. This is just seeing, okay, if we put tents in here, how many could we get potentially? And what you see represented here is plus or minus 60 10 by 10 tents between the plaza and the parking court. The actual layout will be determined by the appropriate parties in the future, but this gives an idea of how that can work out. So I think I went through that fairly quickly. So thank you for hanging with us through that kind of background, and we'll hit some important points as we continue to go through into the design, but I'll go back. I won't go back, that's going forward. You guys also close your eyes. So I just want to go back to here. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this slide, other than when we get into design, we always approach the design by jumping into a place and trying to really have that perspective, that unique kind of quality of the place come out in whatever we do. And so we've just put together a little inspiration collage that we are going to draw some subtle cues as we work through the design process. Some of it you might see in the designs tonight, and some of it will inform us as we continue to move forward in the future. But some of the cues, like the historical character of Highland Park, or the kind of flair that you have with your arts program and the market itself, and some of the murals that exist out there, some of the history of the kinds of planting that you can find in Highland Park, we want to use in our design. So the cobblestone streets, which you can see here, to the designs from the wallpaper that was made by Janway and the Carpenter Wallpaper Factory. When it comes to colors, materials and patterns, we're going to look to those things for inspiration so that we can build those into the design so that it's uniquely Highland Park. Okay. So coming to the plan rendering, we're going to look at this, and I know that sometimes looking at a plan is a little difficult, so we'll talk a little bit on this slide, and then we're going to work through some perspective images, which I think will communicate a little more easily the things that are being proposed here. So to start, I'd like to just highlight a few things, just for orientation's sake. Again, Raritan Ave is here at the top, Magnolia's at the bottom, South Third is kind of right down the middle, and just from that slide about the structure and the framework of the three spaces, you know, you have the plaza here, the streetscape here, and the parking court. And again, the Rite Aid is subject to the agreement there, but that's sort of a separate thing. Okay, the plaza itself, we'll just spend a couple seconds here and we'll move through. The plaza itself follows a symmetrical approach, and the reason for that was really to focus people primarily down the center of the space. The reason for that, I don't think, hopefully I'm not offending anybody. It's not like it's the architecture from some medieval European city where it creates that natural kind of focal point, in that view shed and that view corridor. So regardless of whatever happens on those edges, we're looking to create this sort of symmetrical space that focuses your eye down the middle and has this, entry at the top here on Raritan, this entry here from South Third, and this central spine in the middle that connects the two. And starting from the top, there's a gateway element that we're showing, which you'll see in some perspective renderings, a different paving pattern that could be taken from those wallpaper designs that really greet you and speak to you, hey, this is the plaza here. Then this central space that has two edges here that consist of various configurations of seat walls, and then also green infrastructure, permeable pavers, rain gardens, in keeping with what's there now. And then helping us when it comes to drainage and those types of things, which we've already preliminarily looked at. But you also have a tight bosque of trees, which is just a grouping of trees at the top here to frame this view. The seating area opens up. There's seating underneath here. There's the seat walls. There's overhead string lights, banner poles, and lighting down the side. And then that leads you to this area here where we went back and forth on a number of things here, solutions, but we took shade sails and we've split them to face each other to create this seating area underneath of each one that has different types of seating and still allows for the accommodation of a fire truck to go down through the middle. And then this gateway element would be high enough so that the fire truck could go underneath. But that really brings you to this important node that connects the two here. So you have this plaza that then connects to this extension of the plaza, so to speak, where we're showing a shade pavilion with seating underneath, string lights, and then prefabricated restrooms, some of the community incubator projects here, storage space, and a dumpster enclosure. So that brings you down here. You'll see these kinds of red pieces here and here, some opportunities for public art and sculpture. You'll see them in some of the renderings as well. I'm going to quickly highlight, there's planned parking, bike parking throughout this. I'm just going to quickly circle where some of those are. So up here out at Raritan, then as you get into the plaza itself, down in here and in here, and the bike repair station being here as well. Also trash receptacles, something that's important. So having them up at the corners as well, and then further down into the plaza. Then as you go down here, along in this area, it's important, something that we talked about, eventually will be an operational thing, but having enough capacity that there isn't a buildup of trash. And then just important to have that dumpster enclosure where there's a bigger area that this trash can be disposed of. Electrical hookups up at the top here near Raritan, worked into the sides here, and then as well down here. And then in this area, and then along in here. And then the lighting is also something that we can have electrical outlets in so that you can tap into those from wherever you are in the parking court. There's a drop-off pickup space that we've worked in here. for daily use, for cars, for Uber, Lyft, those types of things, or pick up and drop off, or for food and things like that. Along this western edge where these residential houses are, we're proposing, and this obviously could be a discussion, but we're proposing no parking here on the street. One of the things that came up in our conversations were, and we saw it, was a lot of times cars would park in block driveways. And that was an issue that was brought up to us. So that would be helpful. And also, for any cars turning around and that kind of thing, just gives them a little bit more room, but eliminates that conflict that was occurring. The drainage I spoke of, but there is, a main manhole up here that we can use the green infrastructure to sheet flow. Basically, the site is draining like this to this and then this way. So we would add in some inlets here to pick up some of that drainage from the parking area, bring it along here, use this to infiltrate, and whatever there might be overflowing could go into a pipe and then out this way. So really slowing down, infiltrating as much as we can, but having a way in which to capture an excess, flood event, the storm event, rainwater. Okay, so what we're going to do now is march through a few perspectives to give you a better idea of what this looks like. So here we are hovering above Raritan Ave, looking at the plaza, looking down towards South 3rd, which is here. The parking court is here. Those residential houses are here. So a few things to note here. The first is we're showing trees so that you can see we're proposing trees, but it's hard to see underneath the trees. So my next slide just removes them so we can see at the ground plane a little easier. So the first thing I'll note is just this is the DOT configuration. So what we're showing is bollards in a mountable curb, ADA curb ramps, and continental style crosswalks, so that this is very visible. It's in keeping with what DOT standards are. So it should cause them not to even bat an eye. And then a large element that you see right at the front is this gateway element. This is just representative. This is almost a design exercise in and of itself. But the idea is to announce the plaza with a gateway feature right on the Raritan Ave, on sort of the main drag here. And there's some elements of that we'll talk about in a little bit, but we'll get to that. So then you can see the darker paving here in the front. You can see that darker paving in the back, maybe taking those patterns from the wallpaper design again. Lighter in the middle here where the central spine is, flanked on each side with the seat walls, which you can see here that I'm highlighting. And then in between there are rain gardens and permeable planters. So one of the things we were trying to balance here was getting that green infrastructure without having too much to maintain. It's a hard balance to find, but trying to find that balance of not overplanting or having too much of one thing or the other. And that creates interest seasonally. It also gives the ability and flexibility to have seating on both sides. So you can sit along the edge here and face in. You can sit along the edge here on both sides. You can put out tables and chairs. There's plenty of space in between here. I forgot what that dimension is, but Jesse will look it up and remind me in a couple of minutes what that dimension is. But then you can see those shade sails in the back here with different types of seating underneath. You can see the overhead string lights, the banner poles, and the starts of what we're going to look at in a little bit, but the South 3rd streetscape here and the parking court. I just want to point out some of those art opportunities, a sculpture here that is, again, something that is visible when you turn and look down the plaza here. So let's drop down into the plaza. So this is now, I'll just go back. This is now standing basically right here, looking this way. So you can get a better idea of what that seating could look like along the edges here, some of that planting on either side. And in this view, you can see on both sides, we're showing it as seating with a back that could either be something some people can rest against, or if there is some kind of performance or gathering of some kind, people can sit on both sides. You can get some more people seating. It can act as a little bit of a gathering area, as you can see here. People, if something's going on here, you can sit in here and view whatever's happening here. I should mention maybe now, this is something that we talked about as a potential area for performances if desired, whatever those performances might be. So electrical hookups and those kinds of things. We talked about, and you'll see it in a view coming up, having some kind of backdrop that could come down and act as a screen behind that stage that could announce, be further announcing and branding of the plaza itself, but then also act as a backdrop for performances, or it could be something that movies are showing off. So you can see the trees, you can see the paving pattern using some, and we'll look at the materials later, but some traditional materials, but maybe in a little bit more of a contemporary way, and using bricks, but having some darker bricks to create some of this banding, which you can start to see here. You can see the shade sails with the seating underneath. So here we're proposing picnic-like tables, which you'll see that are modular. And on this side, having bench swings, almost like porch swings from the shade structure. And then you can start to see that turnaround area, that drop-off area, and the parking court behind there. So this now is a little bit further in the plaza, looking back towards Raritan Ave. So you can see a little bit more that shade sail and the seating there that could be configured. You can see the rain gardens. These are the permeable pavers, that stacked seating in certain areas, and then a different paving here to, again, denote this space versus that central spine. So now we're over South 3rd, looking towards Raritan Ave here. So this is the plaza that we were just in. This is South 3rd Street here and the parking court. This is the Rite Aid access point here. So a couple things to highlight in this view. We'll start with South 3rd, but you can see that median and how that deflects cars and works as an area that cars can then turn around. It also, and we're showing flowering trees in here, but we made them transparent so you can see what's going on here. But flowering trees along this edge so that they're under the power lines, but then nice trees in here, nice landscape median that buffers views to the parking lot itself, but doing our best to maximize spaces, but also get trees in the parking area itself. You can see along this edge, that 10-foot landscape buffer, evergreen combination of evergreens, deciduous material, and then also a masonry wall to really screen that residence from the parking court. Looking at the plaza, you can see that connection here. So this space having the shade sails, and then as you turn the corner, having that seating pavilion, the seating underneath of it. This is some bike racks, bike repair station, prefabricated restrooms, community incubator projects, storage, and a dumpster enclosure. And just something to point out, and we'll see some pictures of this later, but the prefabricated restrooms, the storage, those are opportunities for art, for murals and things like that. Some of the companies that do the prefabricated restrooms have an art wrap that you can put on it. So a couple other things to note. Whoops. It's just the story of this presentation is these little teasers. So the circulation of the parking court here. So just noticing that it's two-way circulation. So what that means is basically 24-foot aisles, which is very standard. It allows larger vehicles to circulate. So a right in, you can circulate around, you can then come out. It's all flush. So the idea is that on market days there aren't curbs to deal with. It's flush so that they're, everything is smooth and there's no tripping hazards and things like that. All right, I got through that quick thought. So another little preface, but same thing on this slide. We just layered in what a market could potentially look like and how that could lay out. Ultimately, that's not obviously on us, and there's people and things that we've received a lot more in the know than us to put the market together. But this can give you an idea of some of the things and ways in which it could look and function. So what this is showing is in the plaza, the 10 by 10s lining that spine, leaving space in the middle to circulate down. What it shows in this upper corner here, if I zoomed in on it, you can see it better, but having that backdrop and having a stage or something like that so that there could be a performance here. Then having food trucks in this area, where people can line up, get their food, be kind of right in the middle of the market, have different options for sitting and eating with the shade structure here and the shade sails here. You can see how the tents work, and there is space both here. It's a little harder to see here because the landscape does a nice job of hiding it, but cars can also, or trucks can also park behind the tents here, so that there is that aspect for some of the vendors to be able to park their vehicles behind the tents themselves. We're showing in this area just some community games and things like that that we've seen that you have at the market now. Some cornhole and giant Jenga. Maybe there's rolling out some ping pong or foosball if people are getting into the activities outdoors there. There could be signage here that again marks the farmers market, because you're going to have people coming off of Raritan. You're going to have people coming up South 3rd from parking down on Magnolia or in Track C and coming up this way, and potentially walking through the parking lot here. So really trying to look at this space and understand that there's a lot of frontages here. There's not a traditional kind of front and back. Okay, so let's just spend just a couple more minutes, and then we've kind of gotten through everything. This is just showing some of the materials that we're looking at. And this slide shows some of the fixed furniture, so like the bike racks, trash receptacles, the benches, and what those could be, along with the materials on the ground itself. So we're showing some brick for those main central area of the plaza and some highlight areas, some different colors. And you can see in those renderings what we're potentially looking at doing with those. And then granite sets for the permeable area. So using those in a permeable way where you basically space them out, put stones so that water can infiltrate. It goes nicely with the brick. Continue to do that. Showing a textured tinted concrete with saw cut pattern. So something that's nice with concrete, but a little bit less expensive than some of the pavers, but it goes nicely with those materials. And then there are some areas where we could use some granite banding where the concrete and the pavers meet. We can use, branding of the town, history, whatever it wants to be. These are just some of the bollards. The trash receptacles, using a combination of big bellies, which can also be an art piece, and then some more traditional litter bins. And then you could see an example of that bench where you can sit here, have a back where you can sit up on top. Then throwing in some more colorful and playful elements in some of the seating. So some Adirondack chairs that could be pops of color. This was the modular picnic tables, which when they're used in and of themselves like this, they kind of act as a bench and like almost like a bar stool, but you can put them together. And then they're a picnic table. They come in different sizes. So having some flexibility with that seating, cafe tables and chairs. This is an example of the bench porch swing. And then another type of table and stool that we're showing underneath the shade pavilions, and then lighting. And we would actually have the lighting be the same on both sides with banners. Couldn't quite find a picture of it and didn't trust ChatGPT to give us the correct image. So these are just some of the structures that we were proposing. This is the gateway structure, just for inspiration, not that it's going to look like this, but the idea of it really announcing the plaza itself from the Raritan Ave side. The shade sails, a nice way to get shade, also fairly cost effective. A shade pavilion, giving people a comfortable place to sit and eat and enjoy day to day or on market days. This is that prefabricated restroom. So this is what it could look like, just kind of standard. You kind of eye goes past it. Or these panels can have art on them so that it could be a little bit more of a fun structure. Just storage showing a mural on that. All right, next steps. So we're obviously encouraged that we've had such a great turnout, even though the weather's cold and we have people on Zoom. So we're going to get some more feedback. We'd love to, continue to listen to your response and your reaction to that. We're going to note those down. And as Terry mentioned, please know that as we move forward and start to look at putting these into construction documents and engineering everything, that we're going to continue to filter that feedback into what we're working through. So hopefully, largely tonight, what we've seen is representative of all the different things that we heard. And I know for some it's not going to be necessarily perfect, but we're trying to, again, do our best to find that middle ground where hopefully everyone has something that they were looking for when we began this process. So I think with that, I'll hit the wrong way and say thank you. And Terry, I don't know how you want to do the Q&A if you want to come back up.
There's been a number of new people coming in since I gave my spiel at the beginning, so I'll just do it again real quick. So the plan now is for you all to have an opportunity to give comments on what you've seen tonight or ask questions, clarifications of James or an arterial or of myself or members of the governing body. If there's some questions you have that maybe not in their scope of work, but what I'd ask you to do is try to keep it to 3 minutes. We'll put the mic stand down. Let's do that. And go through, if you have a couple of questions, just name them and then allow a response, and then we'll move to the next person. And if we have time and you have a follow-up question, we'll come back around. But again, we're going to make a pass in this room and then a pass on Zoom, and then we'll go ahead and wrap at that point. Again, all the materials, the slides you just saw, the video will be up on our website. So it's a lot to take in, I recognize. So you'll have an opportunity to look over those materials after this meeting as well. So, and you know how to get me, you know how to get Matt, you know how to get the mayor, and we'll certainly relay any follow-up ideas and comments to the team at Arterial. So with that, Mayor, with your permission, shall we move on to public comment? And I will ask if you're interested in speaking, if you could just come up to the mic and we'll form a line and we'll go through everybody one by one. Oh, sir. And we'll field them and we'll refer back to the slides as needed on the screen.
Good question. I have a quick question. I don't have to stand there.
Well,
I would prefer that everybody take the, as you see people are congregating.
Procedural, Karen, or is it?
Mary, Terry, take the microphone out for Diane. Yeah.
Hi, Diane. When I look at the renderings of ceilings, I hear the phrase ceiling wall. I see one big long bench. And my question is, where is their allowance for someone who uses a mobility device, a scooter or a wheelchair, to sit next to someone, as opposed to being stuck out in the middle of traffic and not facing the same way as everyone? That's my first question. My other question is, I hear prefabricated restrooms. I've never been inside of one, but my question is, will they be designated men or women, or are they all single use? And will one be accessible in terms of ADA compliance with turn radius, stuff like that?
All right, so the first question, the ADA accessibility, and I apologize, I should have had a slide, but yes, a lot of the furniture, and I'll use a picnic table as an example. There's been great strides when it comes to having accessible pieces of furniture. And so, for instance, a wheelchair accessible picnic table is something that we would look at. So in those, I didn't show a photo of it, but in those modular photos, they'll have a piece where the table actually continues out past the bench so that a wheelchair or a scooter or something like that can actually pull up and join everybody at that picnic table. And similarly with the restroom facilities, I believe their standard is they're all accessible. So there aren't any that aren't accessible. So all of the prefabricated restrooms are accessible, whether or not there's dedicated men's or women's. Do you know how Hoboken has done that when we've?
They're single user.
Single user, so, okay, so they're typically single users, so it's both. And just from a accessibility standpoint, in terms of getting around, compliance everywhere with ramps and those things, that's sort of a standard baseline that's built in, definitely. But I think the furniture is a good point. It will be absolutely representative in the furniture, so that there isn't sort of everyone here and then, you know, those users off to the sides.
Then just want to suggest the term seating for probably is not appropriate. That implies that there's some spaces in there. So you might just want to think about that.
Yes, thank you. Point well taken.
All right.
Person.
Or, I'm sorry, madam.
Oh, Karen Cheeser was next.
Yes.
Karen Smith, I'm on staff in the Environmental Commission. The only impermeable, or not, let me rephrase that. The brick that I see is all impermeable, and only the granite pavers or whatever they are permeable. Is that, am I understanding that correctly? All of that stuff is impermeable?
So this is all impermeable, and then this is where the pervious surfaces are.
And the center, the lighter brick, that's also impermeable?
Correct.
How come we're using so much impermeable brick? I know that you can do brick that's
Yes.
permeable.
So there's always a cost and maintenance that's associated with these things. So we try and work with whoever the client is, the towns, to find that balance of what we're capable of maintaining. Because if we go in, and this is just for instance, if we went and made all of this pervious, and then it wasn't maintained, in a year or 2 or 3, it's all impervious, and it was a different cost and a different thing like that. That we're trying to find that balance of making sure that we have those things, but not doing too much where the borough can't maintain it.
So are there drains here and there?
Yes. So we would be looking to drain a lot of this plaza into the areas where we have permeable pavers. So we would be directing a lot of that flow here. In the parking court, there are landscape beds that we would be directing that water into. And then there would be, as a backup, there would be inlets that we would position in the right places so that anything that's beyond what those beds can handle would be taken up into the stormwater. So it's a combination.
And those rain gardens, will they be engineered so that the water that's supposedly flowing down into the granite pavers will actually run into the rain gardens?
Yes.
That's not easy because you have grade changes.
Yes.
My last question is actually just a statement. All the rain gardens are under the trees. So we're talking about shade plants. Okay,
Yeah.
that's it.
This is the first meeting I'm going to, so this might already have been covered in the past. I noticed in Port Pleasant Beach last summer, on the boardwalk, they have large signs such as this saying, no smoking, no vaping, no e-cigarettes, and no marijuana. And this is posted in a large sign at the entrance to the boardwalk. And I thought, wow, that's really great. And they have another sign that says, breathe easy, this property is smoke-free, including electronic smoking devices, tobacco-free for a healthy New Jersey. And there's an actual borough ordinance in Point Pleasant Beach that includes these bans on smoking of all types. So my question is, can this be a consideration for this plaza to keep it clear, clean, and for many types of smoke?
Yeah, thank you. There's a whole layer of signage that is going to be, as we work through the next iteration, is going to be layered on top of this. So that could be something that we discuss with the borough, for sure.
Hello.
Sorry, my question is mainly about the plaza in the center right here.
Okay.
And like design elements of it. So I noticed that in the renderings that you've done, the shade seems pretty much like it's coming mostly straight down. So I was wondering if you've done a shadow study, formal or informal, if the center of that plaza gets very good shade, because I've seen a lot of these kinds of things where it's very beautiful, but there is kind of a gap in the center for that fire access. I'm wondering how you plan to, or how you recommend that we activate the space to make it not seem kind of empty in the middle. And then I also wanted to know for the new trees that are being planted, approximately what size those trees will be, again, for the same like kind of shade and comfort perspective.
I just, I work better when I know whatever was said, so then I can go back and respond appropriately. So yeah, so in terms of activating the plaza itself, so like you said, I'll go to the one with trees. Up front here, we're trying to create this bosque on either side. So we always prefer to plant trees that are larger caliber so that you have more instant impact. There's a balance there too, because the larger the tree, the more sensitive it is to moving it. But we're kind of a minimum 3.5 inch caliper trees, typically 3.5 inch caliper trees. So you will get a nice canopy kind of day one. Now it's not going to be, you know, the mall in Central Park yet, but the idea is that as we look at the species of trees and what's appropriate for here, we would limb them up to start so that they're at least 7 foot for sight lines for ADA purposes, but then also that the crown and that the way that they grow is that have more of like a vase shape so that it would grow out and eventually hopefully create somewhat of a ceiling over this space so that you have some nice cover. It's going to be filtered light, you know, it's not going to be shady all the time. And then that really creates a comfortable, you know, these comfortable edges here where people can sit and, you know, enjoy the space. So then the programming and things like that, you know, this will cast a little bit of shade, but if tables and chairs are put out there, they could have umbrellas if you're looking to pack the space. So there will be, whenever I go to a place, I find the shade and my wife finds the sun. So we want a sort of a healthy balance between the two. Well, I kind of answered, I guess, both in the same response.
I guess activating the center. Do you
yes.
have any suggestions for that?
So, you know, we're creating the sort of canvas. So when it comes to activation, there's a whole series of, you know, people and things that we've been told along the way between, you know, markets and events and things like that. So I'm not sure I can actually answer what that's going to be, but we're trying to make it so that it's flexible so that whatever it is, it can happen.
Okay. So this is the last one.
Yeah.
In terms of the renderings, these are maybe taller than 7 foot trees, but this could be like a 5 to 10 year tree canopy.
So limbed up to 7 feet. So the tree itself could be closer to 20 feet when it goes in.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for the presentation. So I have 2 comments and 1 sort of question. One, the first question is that for that the parking court area, I was curious about, you know, during the market days it'll be activated as market space, but then if it's the rest of the time a parking lot, enforcement of, is there going to be like towing enforcement? I'm just curious like how that space is actually going to be used and like transition between the 2 types of uses because they're very contradictory uses. And then my 2 comments were, one was on this sort of center area where you're envisioning possible food trucks. And I know the food trucks are a huge part of the current farmers market, but I do just want to note that that is a very central area to the market as a whole. The food trucks are often very loud and often on idling with a lot of like gas and sort of speaking to the fresh air of the space. Having that be right in the direct center of the whole market area seems like it could cause some issues. And then secondly, just with the trees, I just want to urge you to consider specifically around native trees and possibly also looking at which have the lowest impact for people with allergens. I know that I and many people have suffered a lot from seasonal allergies.
Great, thank you. So I would leave it to the borough to answer the enforcement issue of parking. So if everybody wants to speak to that, I can move on to theirs.
We certainly will enforce so that on a market day, the parking lot's empty so we can use it. And we have policies where we try to find the people. If we can't, we tow them somewhere in town. So we try to make that minimal. Right now, we don't charge for parking. So we're envisioning, right now there's a parking lot there. It's going to be bigger. And so similar kinds of, we're going to have to deal with enforcement if we have an issue. But right now, the idea is it's going to operate like a much more attractive version of what we have now with more capacity to absorb hopefully some of the additional traffic we get from the redevelopments downtown over time and so forth. So it'll be a parking court most of the time. And so we'll have to handle regulation.
So in terms of, that was a big discussion piece, was potential idling trucks. So that was the point of trying to have electrical hookups in multiple areas. So depending on how this gets set up, there's no need for idling. There's a place that they can plug in and do what they need to do for their food, whatever it might be. And we're landscape architects, so native trees and all that is something we're always thinking of. And so that that would be built into what we do, so for sure. Thanks. Thank you.
Okay, hi everybody. Dan Stern Cardinal, Harper Street. Just a couple of quick things, and other people have mentioned this stuff, so I'll keep it short. First, just real quick, thanks to everybody involved. Council, there's like a committee of residents and everybody, so great job. Thank you for putting all the work into this. Just a couple quick things. A bunch of people have mentioned shade. Maximize the shade. Everyone loves shade. Just more uses in the summer. Want to just make sure that somebody says we have plenty of picnic tables, because when it was the temporary zone, however many years ago that was, it was just I forget how many tables it was, but those were used all the time, especially like in the evenings, people just sitting there eating, hanging out. The more seating and picnic tables, the better, I think. And then the last thing is just in terms of maximizing the space. The parking lot that's there now is really tiny. And I know there's got to be some kind of carryover from the current lot, was it track C lot has to move over there, but just there's anything we can do to like maximize the space on that side at the expense of some parking. I know there's been a lot of math that goes on behind the scenes there, but minimize the parking as much as possible to maximize the other uses that are full-time uses rather than temporary uses for the parking. Yeah, I think that's it. Everything else, other people covered enough. Thank you.
Great. Yeah, thank you.
Again, just to echo some of what people have said, thanks for this. I feel like I attended the workshop earlier in the summer, and I do see a lot of that feedback that many people here and others gave. So that's always refreshing to see that. Echoing the native trees and shrubs, the electrical hookups would be amazing. I know that diesel is like the least favorite part of going to the farmer's market. Even though I like a lot of the food, it's like when you're waiting in line, it's the whole thing. One thing I don't think has been mentioned, Highland Park is a really bike-friendly town. It's a really like a cyclist paradise. Not today, but other days. Today it's not so great, although I did see somebody on a bike today. Wow, you go. And so one thing that I think sometimes holds us back is that at really popular destinations, and right now, like this, even without being pedestrianized, this is a popular area. You've got the bubble tea, you've got Penstock, you've got Skeet Music. There's a lot of businesses, and I frequently find that there's not enough secure bike parking, and where it is, it's all the way on Raritan, and you can't see it when you're doing any day's activities. People can steal a bike in 10 seconds. So I like what I heard about it being multiple places. And then I think today's bikes are a little different. A lot of families and individuals in town use cargo e-bikes. We have one in my family. It's not the only bike we use, but when we do, if you've got the kind of traditional bike racks too close together, those bikes are they're not even going to fit. So just making sure, and I'm sure this is something that's come up, but think about that. And then just, echoing, like, it does seem like you're balancing so many different priorities, but it feels a little bit like, wow, that is an awful lot of parking spaces compared to what existed before. And anything that's true public space, I mean, I think about how many kids in this town are lucky to be able to walk to school, walk home from school, have a place to hang out. And I just feel bad telling them like, oh yeah, we couldn't fit 2 more picnic tables because we needed 3 SUVs or something of that nature. So if there's any more room to squeeze that out, obviously there's a lot of really lucky stuff. So thank you.
Thank you. So just quickly, I'll, in terms of the biking structure, I had noted, and I'll just go, I think the problem is I don't know which one's back and which one's forward. I think it's going the way it's opposite, but yeah, clearly, right? All right, so like you mentioned, bike parking up here so that you capture people coming from Raritan, and then also right in here, here, so you get the kind of heart of the plaza, and then also down here, so that depending on where people are coming from, there is the opportunity to get off your bike, park it, and then walk through the whole space. Don't quote us on this, but right now we're, conceptually, we have about 19 bike parking spaces, essentially. Enough racks for 19 bikes. And yes, when it comes to the parking, we're doing our best to maximize and then also have trees and greenery and that kind of thing. So, it becomes a little bit difficult. You could start to pop spaces out here, but then you lose some of that flexibility for market days. So I think having this, buffer here kind of helps that. Even if you aren't able to pop those out, it's going to feel very green. And then the same with making sure that there are some here in the center, and then also this edge, making sure that there's trees in here that'll make it feel, like there's plenty of tree cover.
James Nichols, 232 Harrison. I just wanted to thank you guys. I think you've done a great job within the confines of your project limit lines. I wanted to say that the role of Main Street Highland Park Design Committee has been to really try and encourage the borough to be a much better client, both on this project and on the redevelopment overall. And we see this inevitably in the context of the privatization of a large space that's already been bought by taxpayer money. We love that space. So we appreciate you are taking the time to meet with us, and I think very professional, very good job. We wrote a letter, we tried to convey to you all, including internally Main Street, all the parties involved, what we see really as the once in a lifetime opportunity, which again, your presentation suggests has to do with the Rite Aid development agreement and everything else. But I think the design principles that are lurking underneath these legal transactions are the thing that we've been trying to give voice to. So, and I'm going to just make 2 of those again. For me, the biggest opportunity that really should be embraced instead of minimized is imagining the architecture of a street that goes through the site, through the parking lot, over to, through the Rite Aid lot, over to South Fourth. And I think it would be great to do everything we can now to make that happen. And when I think of that urban design opportunity, it's really compelling. And a lot of what you've done suggests, really, that idea really came out of work that we presented to us. So what I would like to see, and this drawing I think is better, more accurate than the rendering, which has, because the rendering has all this asphalt kind of toned brown, kind of looking like the brick. I think the less we see these different precincts, the more continuity, the better. So the more the language of the plaza can wrap around and through the site, and make it less look like the plaza and this look like really a parking lot. Because when I read this plan, all that gray asphalt to me reads like gray asphalt parking. So I want to feel like I'm on a street and I can make a right and feel visually like that makes sense. When I want to go to North Fourth, South Fourth, instead of feeling like I'm driving through a parking lot. And so, and the other part of that is really when I think of wrapping that language, is for me the big opportunity lost on this plan, and you're part of the way there, is this zone which has the portable toilets and everything else. If that's rendered more like the plaza, then I can begin to think of a whole precinct that I'm living in that can be really beautiful and special. And, you know, and this is a rare opportunity because it's an urban, it's a borough-led redevelopment project. So if we can't do this kind of thing now, when would we ever be able to do it? And really what it takes, and this is why I feel like I'm here to encourage the borough to be the best possible client and kind of go to bat for this opportunity that's lurking out there, and we should just embrace that and not be scared of it. And this could be a protagonist that says, okay, developer of the Rite Aid lot, this is what we need you to do, because this is a really great town, and we're inviting you to come in instead of being a meek, scared clients like, oh, the project might happen. We should be forceful and say, this is really what we want. This is our vision, and let's go for it. So keep up the good work, all of you. And I'm here to encourage all of you. And that's really my message. So thanks.
Thank you. So I can't say we disagree at all with a lot of that. But one layer that we're also filtering on top of this is that maybe there should have been more of this in school, but a lot of times you weren't given budgets in school. Oh, just do whatever you want to do. It was great. But you know, there is budget reality. So you know, we also, as we shift and shape, you know, that obviously is something that we have to keep in mind and try and work within. So I would love nothing more than to make that parking lot all pavers too. It would look fantastic. It would cost a lot. So doing our best to balance. So we'll continue to do that.
Hi, first of all, I want to have a caveat. I couldn't hear most of what you said. That's me, that's not you, by the way. So I'm going to listen to it when I get home. So what I'm reacting to are the visuals that I saw. And one of the things I noticed, I like the idea of different types of tables and things like this. And I noticed the chairs. And there's something interesting. Adirondack chairs are very uncomfortable. Not only that, they're hard to get out of, especially if you're getting a little bit older. So you might want to, I think you should reconsider the chair design. And the other chairs, the cafe chairs, are not very comfortable. I've sat in them. They're on Herald Square in New York, all over. So you might, if you're looking for this as kind of a restful area, a place for people to sit and talk, you might want to look at the seating that you're a little more closely. Okay, next thing. Okay. I was wondering, where are all the trees? I saw the trees on 3rd Avenue on either side of 3rd Avenue. And I understand that the one thing I heard is that you need 3rd Avenue open for fire engines. Okay, but we need more trees. If not, that whole central area is going to be unbearable in the summer, the sweltering. Now, you don't have to put trees down the middle. You know, you can put them 1/3 of the way in or something so that fire engines can get through. But I think that you need more trees. Now, I can't tell from here if those are shade trees or not.
These are shade trees here.
They're shade trees?
Yeah.
Okay.
We're just trying to it's tough because we're trying to allow you to see through it too. So that's why you probably looked at this next slide and thought, what is he? He said he was a landscape architect. Where are the trees?
But I think you could probably put another row of trees in, maybe third of the way in, so a fire truck can still get through.
So
And then there's
those numbers.
the parking lot. It's asphalt. I don't know if you mentioned, are you considering anything else besides asphalt?
We talked about a few different materials, but then that again goes to the budget and looking at the cost of those to make the parking lot nicer. So, yeah.
Okay, so, but I also noticed, it looked like there's only one tree in the middle. It seems, again, this is impervious paving. It's going to have runoff. It's going to be a heat island. That maybe we could have more trees like between the rows of cars or more in the periphery. Plus, I don't know if you have bioswales there or not, I can't tell.
That's what the idea of all these planting areas were, is that water could flow.
All right, but I think you need to go back and look to get more greenery, more trees to shelter that asphalt. And the third thing was the farmer's market. You know, your designers, I'm sure you can come up with a better plan than parallel roads in designing the farmer's market. You know, Metuchen has it in the circle. You don't have a square there, but you know, oval, maybe with something in the middle, you could have a stage or a seating area. But, you know, I think something more attractive than an oval, or excuse me, than parallel.
Yeah.
So I'll probably have more once I hear the presentation. Thank you.
You're welcome. So just in case this plan kind of shows some of the trees, and you know, we're trying to put as many trees as we can, but also we're striking that balance of visibility. So Jesse, how many trees are we showing?
37 total. There's 27 shade trees, 10 ornamental. Throughout the bottom, there's like smaller evergreen trees, but I'm not counting those as trees just because they're going to be more like conical.
So if you couldn't hear Jesse, 37 total trees. I forget the breakdown of shade and ornamental already. But you know, one of the things that we also tried to balance was just some of those sight lines. You know, we could definitely pop some trees in here and get some more tree canopy in there. But you know, we're showing a few in this area here. Along this edge, 2 in each of these in the middle, so a total of 4 in here, here, and then also along here. So, you know, again, trying to strike that balance. So points well taken. Thank you. Oh, just to clarify for you, I lost where you went. Oh, thank you. The farmer's market layout is just conceptual, so people get an idea. That's going to be designed and looked at later by more appropriate individuals than us to lay out the market.
Good evening, I'm Melanie McDermott. I'm co-chair of the Highland Park Shade Tree Committee, and I live on South Third. First of all, echoing congratulations and compliments for the creativity and the really sincere effort to respond to input from the municipality, from the residents, and from the borough. And I'd love to see more of that and to hear more about the process of what that would look like. And the following are a whole series of comments with a few questions rolled in. And in some senses, they're as much to our borough, to our council, and to our mayor and the staff, because a lot of what will make this space shine and be really usable and beautiful has as much to do with governance and management as it does to design. But you know, as a designer, you can make some choices now that will make that easier. So, you know, that's so. I also want to compliment Main Street that's done a wonderful job over the years of, you know, caring for and stewarding our current farmers market. And I'd like to see a future in which there is as much flexibility for the evolution of public management of this public space, that it be treated as a public space, that if Main Street, for example, were in charge, the whole permitting for events, that it's be a space that can evolve in the future. We can't see now everything we'd like to see. So I see a lot of possibility there, but I did want to sort of state that. The second part of governance is maintenance is huge. Permeable surfaces and especially rain gardens under shade trees is a big maintenance effort, and it will require some training and hopefully some citizen input and stewarding. So all of that could make the real difference there. On the subject of trees, I can't tell from the rendering, and I should know this because I live on South Third, but the existing street trees on South Third, opposite that little median.
This side?
Don't we have some trees there?
So
Will they
they
be
don't,
spared?
yes, but they don't really start until like somewhere about here.
Oh, okay.
So there's nothing
There isn't?
here currently.
Because, you know, as one of the other speakers commented, it's years before you get real shade from a 3.5-inch caliper tree. I don't think you should put in larger trees. It's expensive and they don't survive well. But I'm concerned about soil capacity for the size of the trees that you hope to have. I can, you know, in the future, I hope there's the opportunity for staff to interact more specifically, concerned about any tree removals that might be occurring in the process. Any trees that can be spared are going to be years ahead of anything you can plant. One big question, and I must be missing something because I know this is big. Where is the parking on farmers market days? Because I would like to echo the other speaker, several other speakers. I'm kind of sad this is maybe urban reality to the dominance of parking lots. Okay, fit in one more comment, footnote. What's the matter with gravel? Like, I know it's not the most permeable thing because it gets compacted, but we don't have to be fancy here. We're Highland Park. We have loved our gravel farmers market. I don't think we need black asphalt, which is hot as heck. So there might be some cheaper, not so designer-ish, you know, pretty solutions that we can afford. But yeah, what is the concept for the cars? Because I you know, that plaza is kind of tiny. I mean, it's beautiful. I'm happy we're getting it, but it's kind of tiny. So, you know, your market day, right? That whole parking lot, the rest of the week is part of the farmer's market. So if people are driving up in their cars, I personally bike, but anyway, if people are coming up in their cars, what's the concept for how that's gonna work? Can they park in the right?
We were itching there.
Yes, this is like we're in my territory now. So I've been thinking about this a lot. As indicated on the slide, the Track C redevelopment has public parking space on the surface part of the lot. So there will be some tension in the year they're under construction and we're up and running.
Yeah.
So we're going to encourage residents who can to please take non-motorized forms of transportation. We do not have permission to use the Rite Aid lot, but we'll see what happens, you know, see what use goes in there and, you know, how much flexibility we have. But I'll just remind everybody, a lot of the parking's on Magnolia now, and it will continue to be on Magnolia in my mind following this development.
Yeah.
And once the Track C development's up and running, we actually are netting probably as many spots as we've lost. You know what I mean? It's just going to be that transition year when they're in the construction. I'm not sure how much of public spots will be available for our use while the developer is working there. So, you know, hopefully, and then we're yielding more spots every other day of the week. I know that we've heard some feedback that maybe we could reconsider so many, and we can certainly take that back. And just to be very clear, you know, a lot of the plain parking court is budgetarily driven, and I have a lot of concerns about gravel maintenance and tripping and things like that. I hear you, but I think it's not as accessible to a lot of people. But that's a challenge. I mean, you know, this project, we could spend more on the parking court than the plaza itself if we keep at it.
Yeah.
So we gotta juggle that because
can we squeeze more budget out of any of the developers? I mean, is that
to be continued?
Just saying. Okay, and I want to wrap to give time for more people. Just the aesthetics really matter. I like all the renderings I see, except for one. This is personal, but I really dislike the black metal gateway, like the modernistic gateway. That decision is gonna really have a lot about the presentation of the town, and I think a lot of us who are supportive of redevelopment are fearful that we're gonna sort of Metuchanize Highland Park, and it's gonna all be this sort of modular thing that we can see in every other town. So I don't know what that design process is gonna look like, but I think that design element is gonna really be a big deal. And I'd rather see something that's wooden and, I'm not a designer, but really that matters. And I'd like to see a public stage, and I love the events that, I'd love to see this be an event space as well. So thanks very much, and I look forward to continued dialogue.
Thank you.
Jeff Perlman, North Third Avenue. Well, one question, and I don't know if you addressed it, was when are we going to get this? When are we going to build this? And then how are you phasing that? I asked the question. It seems to me that perhaps the closure, or sorry, pedestrianization of South Third Avenue. I used to practice. I'm a transportation planner. The pedestrianization of South Third Avenue. It's not a closed street. It's an open street. So pedestrianization of South Third Avenue. Could you have DOT approval? You could probably do that by the spring. I know you want to. I've heard that you want to design it all first. But with the upcoming World Cup FIFA event, we should. You don't have to plug that. We have to be able to. We have an opportunity to immediately use the space for events. So, and I think that would really showcase what potential programming this space could be, even with the 20-foot wide fire truck access. So I guess programming of that space is going to be really important. I also want to sort of really echo a lot of what Jim Nichols said about. Can you go back to the plan view?
Sure.
Thanks.
That
one, yeah. And really, it's no accident a lot of people are focusing on the parking lot. I know we don't call it a court because it's cute, but it's a parking lot. That's all it is. People don't like it because parking is ugly and there's too much of it in this rendering. And I would recommend removing the northern aisle of parking, those that are, but yeah. That used to be a daycare. And that lot used to be a daycare, and we should have some activities, some space for children to reference what was there. Not cars. If they want to bring kids play cars, that's fine, but actual cars, no. I think we should really get rid of those parking spaces. Also, thinking about the Rite Aid lot, there's really a great opportunity here to really leverage this whole. And Jim said it better than I am, but I'm gonna repeat my own spin on it. Really do need to connect the street through Rite Aid and out to North, the South 4th. And I think the cross access easement where it's shown here and what I guess the borough is trying to get for the developer through the redevelopment agreement should be moved to the north drive aisle, or at least hold on to 2 potential cross access easements, so that if we want to redevelop this back piece of the lot, we can do that with either a residential building or a mixed-use building. But a residential building would sort of be a bookend to this. You'd have the plaza, and then then you'd have a residential building, and then we would need to extend sidewalks. Whatever treatment sidewalks are. Jim talked about the kind of treatment we'd like to see, and push that out into the old Rite Aid lot, and on both sides, so we can actually get a street out of it, as opposed to just a dead-end parking lot. And I know that in terms of showing 2 food trucks for the farmers market lot, I think that working with the Rite Aid owner, maybe even on farmers market days, have 2 more food trucks on that back end, so that now you have 2 on that side of the lot, 2 or 3 more on the other side of the lot in the Rite Aid property. I know it's going to be a challenge; they have to work it through, but I think that would be a nice addition. And then I just want to finish by saying that as a transportation planner, municipalities rarely get the opportunity and are really successful at pedestrianizing their streets. I mean, maybe we are professionals, maybe 5 in the last 25 years in the entire state. It's just so rare. Yeah, and all the ones you did. A lot of them did. Did you Division Street too in Somerville? Yeah, it's just so rare, and it wouldn't have happened without the leadership of Borough Council and the mayor, because DOT, especially getting DOT approval here, is a challenge. So the perseverance and the commitment to turn this into a pedestrian plaza, I think, is a win, whatever else comes from it. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Gail Arnold. I just wanted to say thank you to all of you who put your efforts and creativity together. I think this is really exciting. And I just had a sort of very pragmatic question, and it's possible I missed it, but I didn't hear you talk about how the vendors are going to be pulling in, setting up, putting out their goods. Especially, I mean, if you're envisioning 60 vendors, I don't see anything resembling 60 spaces for them that are close enough that they could be carrying their supplies. So, and it sounds like the Rite Aid parking lot is a question, it's not a given. So, a few thoughts that come to my mind are South Third is really wide, and maybe some parking could be in the sort of slanted parking spots instead of parallel parking next to the curb. You get in maybe, I don't know, maybe twice as much parking. And maybe, I don't know what your storage was for. It sounded like it might be for art or something, but maybe there could be some storage for the vendors to pull up, put their supplies, and then get out of the way and let the next vendors come in so that there's a reasonable, workability to the process. But I think it's really exciting, but I do foresee that this is going to be a bit of a parking tough situation. So I think that needs to be kind of built in.
Yeah, no, thank you. So just a couple of things maybe. So, part of our charge was to try and work to make it flexible. We weren't figuring out what vendors are coming in and all that kind of stuff. We've been having those discussions, which is partially why, we went with two-way circulation, 24-foot wide aisles, because that allows a lot of the trucks that would come, that size truck, to be able to get in and circulate. It becomes an operational thing in terms of when they do it to make it easier for how they do it, in terms of everybody comes all at once at 8 o'clock and it opens at 8:30. That's obviously difficult. But then also just depending on if they're not larger vehicles and they can do that, having access through the Rite Aid potentially, hopefully all those things help to mitigate some of that when everybody comes. There could be some that come here, some that come in through here, some that come in and out through here. So that's something that's from an operational standpoint, it's kind of outside of us, but we've been trying to make sure that we're keeping it fairly flexible and open to allow for that, looking at, turning radiuses in here and those things like that. And this, good point on the storage. I don't know what exactly it's going to be used for, but it could be used for some of the everyday furniture and things like that that go out here. It could be used for vendors. We're not, for us, we were just kind of looking at where's the best area for storage. We felt like the dumpster and the storage kind of tucked away over here, away from the residences, would be probably the best location.
Thank you.
Sure thing. And sorry, I just want to go backwards. That 20-foot fire zone that needs to be cleared. So there can be movable objects in there. There just can't be anything fixed. So that's the kind of thing that the constraint that we were wrestling with. Anything that's fixed needs to be outside of that 20 feet. But if it's movable, it can be there because it's not permanent. Just wanted to clarify that.
Hi, Helen Levine, Donaldson Street. It's a fascinating plan and it's fun to look at it and consider all the possibilities. I want to ask a few questions that relate to the use of the space. I know we've been focusing a lot on farmers market, but there's a lot of other events that Main Street is involved with. And now they have this very large rectangular space that they can use and it has a lot of flexibility. So I'm wondering if there's, on paper, do we know what the overall space is that they're using now? And whether this, I'm not talking about trees, I'm not talking about benches, I'm talking about usable space. If there's a similar. It doesn't look like it's a similar amount of usable space for the farmer's market, but also for some of the big events that they hold there. So that's my first question, is if you know that, because I think the flexibility of that rectangular space, it's hard to imagine that, it's particularly the lovely upper area, how flexible that will be when you have some permanent seating there. So I'm curious, just kind of in square footage.
Right.
Keep going, or do you want to respond as I go?
Keep going, because I'm noting some of that. We did look at the current space in comparison to this. I don't have that fresh up in my brain, so we'll have to kind of come back to that. But I'm making sure we know.
And to that point in the process, how will that information filter back to us? Maybe that's not for you to answer, but how do we learn about an answer to a question that you don't readily have that information? Does it go up on a website?
Yes.
Well, Mayor, please don't maybe to the website. I don't know, we're gonna figure out how to distill, but I would suggest reaching back out to me if we get a more pointed answer to your question. We haven't quite figured out, there's a lot, you can hear all the comments we've gotten. So we'll certainly try to relay that. I know we did some initial space comparisons before we had a design, and we're netting more space for the market and equivalent space for that kind of that front area that you're talking about, where cars don't park now in the current location. But we haven't done that, or at least I haven't done that analysis since we've gotten these design plans. So we're probably gonna have to get back to it.
But I don't want it to me personally. I would like to.
We will provide an opportunity for questions that were asked. Similar to what we did with the supermarket, there was a lot of questions that were asked, and we provided some Q&As.
And I'll say we are going to be continuing to work with Main Street, Highland Park, who runs the market and a lot of those programs, to make sure it works.
And where will Main Street actually be housed? Do they have a location? Because you kept talking with the last person about storage. I know their offices are right there and they have a lot of stuff there. Are they going to be contiguous to this, or is that not clear at this point? The actual.
Do you want to run through all your questions and then come in?
Yeah, it would
be.
Sure. That was on here. And then the Welkowitz Pavilion. I know there's a number of things that are different, but is that going to be eliminated? To echo what Melanie said, I think compared to what's been shown, that big structure versus the Welkowitz Pavilion, it has a different look and feel, and I just wonder if that actual structure will be eliminated or replicated. I'm done.
So, and you may have to remind me, the Main Street offices, we've negotiated office space in the redevelopment project, so it's not immediately, but it's really close. And one of the reasons we wanted the storage there for the bigger stuff, so it's easy to access. There will be that time where we have no Main Street building and we don't have a redevelopment. And so we've been talking about what the options might be nearby for a temporary office until the project's on. The current pavilion, we haven't set on whether it's relocating to this. It won't work as the gateway piece because it doesn't have the clearance that for the fire trucks. We toyed with keeping it in that, parking court adjacent area, or going with something that fits the spot a little better because it's kind of a narrow skin. But we will certainly, if it can be moved, if it's not moving here, we're going to find a home in Denver.
And I'll just go like this to point to the area that Terry was referring to in terms of potentially, it landing there if it can work.
So, on Valentine, I'm going to be very, very brief because I have very strong impressions of this, but not a lot of background of the process. I do want to thank you for presenting us with so many things that are clear, but also feel to me equally problematic. I feel that this is claustrophobic, and I'm responding strongly to what Jim Nichols pointed out, the sense of flow. The best public spaces I've ever been in this country and abroad are places that have that ability to allow people to sort of understand their own movement in the place. To me, it looks very boxy, it looks very claustrophobic. The friends that I have in Metuchen and Piscataway come to our farmers market, love our farmers market, because it's open. It feels open. It also feels a little raffish, a little undeveloped, a little funky. But it has the pleasure of being not something that is fit into the dominant building structures. I just want to echo the thing about the parking lots. Even when they're rearranged, they're deeply rearranged. I mean, people make themselves comfortable, and I'm sure that'll happen. But I just would encourage you to please entertain what Jim Nichols was saying about the flow, because it really does make a difference.
Thank you.
I was curious about how this is actually getting paid for. Looking at it, we already have significant public space, and the town already purchased 2 of the properties, and I think that's on the town. Are we being reimbursed for those properties through the developer for those purchases? And then what is the maintenance looking like? Who's going to be paying for the maintenance? Is that coming from the developer, or is that something the town is taking on? And then overall, in terms of cost, we've already heard numerous comments about like limiting the overall cost of different things. We have a huge parking lot going in and a very small plaza in comparison to the large parking lot. And I'm just wondering, are we looking at also, Melanie mentioned this about the, to have any of these trees survive and get to any real size, we need a sizable soil volume underneath. You can't just put in a parking lot and dig a hole and hope the tree survives. You have to have structural soils underneath so that they actually survive and thrive. And I'm wondering if those costs have been taken into account as well.
So I can hit the last one. So yeah, trees often get such a bad rap because they didn't quite do what we want them to do, but we kind of put them in a little 4x4 pit. We probably maybe throw a little bag of topsoil in and say, here you go, best of luck. And trees are amazing because they still do pretty well. But a lot of the success of a tree is what happens underneath. So we take that into account in our tree pricing when we're trying to put the estimates together, and then how we're detailing that substrate. So making sure that there is, and there's different ways to do this, so I won't get into the different ways, but making sure that you're not having a compacted root zone, so there's plenty of space for air to maintain, water to get into it, all those things that make a tree successful happen underneath. Nobody ever sees it. It's typically not done. So if you're allowing that underneath, you won't get the heaving of pavement. You'll get the tree being able to have healthy roots to spread out, so it grounds the tree, it doesn't girdle the roots. So absolutely looking into all of those things, and they're a part of any detail that we put together when we do our plan. So that is definitely baked in. The other 2, purchase of properties and maintenance costs.
Yeah. So we're staring in that direction. To answer the question about the properties that we own on track C, we will absolutely, part of that, there's a value to those properties that we will be negotiating into that redevelopment agreement, and we will get money for those properties. But we're negotiating, so I don't know how much it's going to be at this time. As for maintenance, one of the deliverables is kind of a maintenance manual, so from a very nitty-gritty basis, but something we've had some pretty plain conversations amongst the council and myself is that we know we're going to have to devote more either staffing or get some kind of contractual service to help us maintain the space the way it needs to be maintained so that it lasts in the long run. We haven't figured out exactly how, but we will have to figure that. And in terms of funding, we do have a large grant that's kind of seeded this effort, but it's based on the initial numbers I got, it's not going to be enough. And we do have other opportunities with the county for funding, as well as negotiations with some of the developers. So these are all on the table, as well as our own capacity if we have to take in some money as well. But part of my challenge has been, it's hard to fundraise something you don't know what it is yet. And so part of the deliverable is the concept plan with a budget so that we can then figure out how we're going to plan. So, but we have 1 million, was it 1 million there?
More.
Was it?
Yes,
From, no,
1
I'm
point
talking about the
something.
prior year, not this recent one.
Yeah.
So, which is partially how we have our material here. So we're gonna build from there.
1.3.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Jonathan. I was wondering if you gave any consideration to potentially painting the kind of part of Southwark Central Meeting and the parking lot, either with art or solid color to help make it feel a little bit different than a normal parking lot while still maintaining kind of that asphalt material. That first question. And the second question is, when there's a farmer's market or kind of any other big event going on, there's a lot of people walking maybe between the plaza and that park court area. Is there any plans to further limit vehicle traffic on the remaining part of South Third Central Median?
So I'll answer the first question. Yeah, I mean, painting the asphalt and mural, however it wants to be done, absolutely nothing that couldn't be done. We're not necessarily designing that as part of this. I think there's a part of our charge is to have those spaces where that can happen, but we're not the local artists and things like that that feel appropriate for us to do that. So whether it's, and I'll just go back, keep going. So whether it's, painting some of the asphalt, whether it's in the street or in the parking court, murals on the walls, places for sculpture, yes, in short. And some of it will be included as part of the plan, but a lot of it probably will be something that the borough does after the fact. And then limiting vehicles, we did get into, and Terry, feel free to, if I speak out of turn here, so just tell me
Sorry,
to stop.
I was trying to be subtle, but it didn't work.
But in terms of limiting traffic here, one of the things for sure on market days and in general, but any kind of large vehicles, we would want to limit those. That becomes an operational thing. But it's also a enforcement thing to limit traffic down South Third that I can't necessarily answer. That's going to be the borough and the police that are going to be more able to answer that in terms of limiting that traffic. Can it be done? It can be. That's an enforcement thing.
It's on material.
And then just going back to the painting, is there any chance of potentially painting the whole parking lot a solid color, like a gray or a red, to maybe match the plaza a little bit?
Yeah, that's possible for sure.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm just gonna mention. I was conferring with the mayor before, it is 8:20, but we're gonna keep going until everybody's had a chance to speak, and we have a few
other
hands up
persons
at
on
home.
Zoom.
So those of you on Zoom and home, we will get to you.
Hi, John Webster. Been a landscape architect for 55 years, taught at Rutgers 30, and I've done thousands of these crits. And the previous information that we gave you, I'm impressed. Can you go back to the plan?
John louder.
Speak
Come closer to the microphone.
I'm impressed with the plaza. It's going to pull people around the corner, I think, just as you were explaining. I like what you did with the parking lot as opposed to your prior design. Probably cuts it 30% off the budget. And the people aren't going to be tripping over all of the bump outs. Okay, but here's the but. Did you do the turnaround? Did you drive your car around on the turnaround there?
So we have turning templates that we use for cars.
Okay.
So
I have no problem with the car.
yes, so this was envisioned as cars. We also did it for like Sprinter vans. So that's like a FedEx truck, or that could be like a food truck size. Those can make the turn. They wouldn't get stuck, but they would have to do like a K turn.
Right.
So vehicles like that, if it's on the odd market days and there's, at the end when they need to leave, they have to do that. That can be accommodated, but larger trucks and things like that would need to and want to circulate the parking, which is partially why something that we did also in response to some of that is this, at one point, this median was solid with trees and landscape all the way down. We cut this out so that you can allow people to circulate through the parking lot and then back out onto South Third.
Okay, but on your last slide, that was the thank you, you had two big box trucks in there. My guess is they're not going to be making these K-turns, and certainly the food trucks that are longer than that are lined up on the side. That's great that you have the electrical outlets, but they're not going to make that turn either. I mean, there are some things that you can do and steal some of the other side of the west side, South Third, and it might work. But how many times are you going to have somebody say, oh, I'm going to pull in there, and I'm just going to get 2 tomatoes?
Right.
Yeah. And they're gone for 20 minutes, and there's a log jam there.
Right. So I mean, that's a great point, and it's something that we've looked at, and we'll continue to look at extensively, but this is, and I know you know this, but an important balancing act, because what we're trying to do is make sure that there's some level of service for vehicles, but that if we make it so that every truck can make that turn, or, that will then start to push this way out here. You will eat up all of this, and it'll essentially be, a large turning around for a truck. So we're trying to balance being able to have those trucks turn around or do a K-turn without losing the sort of pedestrian richness and focus that this wants to have. And so that's something that we're still going to continue to kind of push and pull on as we get into the engineering of it, looking at, because you're right, can we steal a little out of this sidewalk? Can we steal a little out of this sidewalk? Is that enough, or does that start to then make the sort of pedestrian space a little bit more compromised, and then you kind of have a space that maybe we're not as happy with? So yes, it's a balancing act that we're trying to.
Well, I guess my question is, do you really need a turnaround? What we have existing, there's no drop-offs, there's no turnarounds. People sort of do it. Why not extend the plaza perhaps down further?
So you have access to Speak Music, driveways to Speak Music, driveways to these residential neighborhoods that we can't cut off. So
you could probably pull the bollards down to here. The same bollards that go up and down, give everybody that lives there, they can get in and out
of their driveways.
Yeah, but then, so what we're talking about there's 2 different types of bollards. There's the removable kind, so you go out and you pick it up and move it somewhere. Or there's semi-automated, which is a little bit easier. They're there. With force, you can push them down. So you can lock them in place up or push them down, lock them in place. It requires somebody to get out and do something. So to think, I don't want to step out of place, but to think that the residents are going to do that, it didn't seem like that was something that was plausible. It seemed like the best way for people to come down here, not drive into a dead end, was to provide a turnaround so that if they come down here, they can turn around, they can access where they're trying to go, or they can come back this way.
You realize that probably every market in Europe has got those bollards. They have the remote control, and you give it to the person that needs it, and they can use it.
Yeah, no, we were talking to a company in Israel that has these. They're incredible. They said it gets very costly. So again, those start to become costly, and we're trying to kind of balance a lot of things. So that was something that we looked at.
Okay,
for sure.
The second thing, which I have criticism for, is the spot here. This to me, well, I echo everything that Jim said. This to me looks like there's already been a decision to make that a very difficult thing to do. None of the box trucks could make those convoluted little turns in there. I mean, it would be very, very difficult to say that you want to connect it. You probably only have one time to do it, to show to the next owner to get something that works the way you want it. It is a very smooth kind of urbanized road.
Yeah,
it can be done.
Absolutely. So just to make sure it's clear, like this was really outside of our scope. So in the very beginning, just as a, in working through it, we just looked at, okay, if you punch through and you reconfigure a few spaces, it could work in that way. And then these things have come up, but again, that's kind of outside of our,
I understand that, but if you are in the bargaining position, you need to have something that works for you and for Rite Aid, whoever.
Right. Yeah. Thank you.
Just think about it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Aaron from Speed Music, and I want to just applaud the vision and making of the town square. We're right on it, and the plaza is beautiful, and so we're super excited about that. We've noted in a few of the meetings some of our concerns about, in terms of music school, about our 6-year-olds and the sensitive music they play, and how events and music are going to come into what we're doing, and how it's going to. We don't know what it's going to do, but acoustically, it's a sensitive space, and so we've talked about those concerns elsewhere, and that's not what I'm here for. But I did want to ask, the events that, however many events that are held by Main Street, they're all going to be in the plaza, or is that going to be, or is Main Street, or town events going to be held in the parking court? Or is the parking court only for the market?
I'll take a shot. The truth is, we haven't discussed that in any major detail, and I'd love to bounce that off. There may be, this is my answer, I could imagine maybe a couple of events that are bigger where we might want to spread over there. But by and large, I was imagining non-market events being the plaza proper. But that I hadn't discussed that specific question in any kind of detail. There may be, for example, the Mid-Autumn Festival that the Chinese American Society and some of our committees did probably would have needed that parking court to happen. But there are a handful of those that I can come up with off the top of my head. So that's a good thought, and we can get more specific answer to that.
Cool. I mean, just thinking about both the businesses and how much space there is, and an activity that's going to be literally right on their windows, because all these businesses are losing the space. The plaza is going up to what, 4 feet or to the building, right?
Right,
So,
but there'll still be some frontage in front of their buildings.
Right, right.
It's
So
just we eliminated the curbs.
Right, but like, for example, for our property, the garden's going to go right. Like that's going to be gone, and right. So we're going to have people, dancing, hanging out 4 feet away from 6-year-olds. So that's what I'm trying to figure out.
Understood, and I guess I want to remind everybody too. Market days like our kind of peak typical utilization. Right. We don't have and we want to see more programming. So don't get me wrong, but by and large, I mean, one of the concerns I've had with this design is the place has to work as a nice place to hang out with no programming also. Right. So, because I think that's probably the majority of the days is passive space for our community to use to eat their meals, have their kids out, that kind of thing. But I think it's a juggle, and I think part of our playbook, we're going to have to talk through a bunch of scenarios and have, especially to be fair to the neighbors, so that everybody has a reasonable expectation of how the spaces are going to be used.
And that eating out piece, let me just mention, thinking about the future too. I don't know how many commercial spots there are there, 5, 6, and this relatively works for their uses right now. But if any of those spots changed into restaurants, is there any ability for them to do outdoor dining or activate the space for them? Because most outdoor plazas have spaces for restaurants or cafes to go indoor outdoor. And how the way that I understand the plan right now, there's going to be seating in front of all these commercial spaces. So if there wouldn't be necessarily a way for them to have outdoor dining if you did have restaurants. And ideally, that would be a cool use of some of those commercial spaces, some of which have had a lot of trouble renting and holding on to people. So
I would love James to answer that one.
Yeah, it's a good point. So there's nothing to say that the restaurants can't set up out here. You see that all the time.
Right.
So that's one option. It's hard for us to kind of imagine and think, maybe there's restaurants here in 30 years. And again, they can still, this is probably 10 or 12 feet space that they have on either side, 14. So 12 to 14. So you can get a row up along, the building itself. They can go here, but if there isn't, we're trying to figure out how it's both, right? So
it's just, it would be great to have flexibility so you could, when you talk about activating space, having restaurants that would want, a restaurant would want to be there.
Right.
A building owner would want to invest in there. And as best as I understand, the taxi's not going to be there. So there's at least one little space,
right.
And there's a space across the street too. So it would be great in terms of activation.
Definitely. And we could look to see if there's, a little bit more that we can kind of pop out in there. That allows us to continue to get as many trees and the green infrastructure, but balances a little bit. It's definitely competing, but we can look at that.
Right, but if the borough, can help that along by having a permitting process, so
that would have to be how we.
Right, but if that could be something that's encouraged, that's going to be a boon, I think, for everybody. Ultimately. The only other thing I would say about the future piece is, and this is just my only negative thing that I have to say. It's just a shame that the property adjacent to us you couldn't extend the plaza past us and to that next property. Because if you went that extra 30 feet or whatever it is past our driveway onto the next property, if that property could be optioned, you would be able to connect these two disparate spaces. Even if we could just do it with hardscaping, it would be awesome. This is a generational opportunity, so I hope it can do so. Yeah.
Good evening, my name is Alvin, and I was speaking with my neighbors earlier this week. We live right where the word plan is, and to the north and to the south of it. So we have some opinions about this design, and I feel thankful and appreciative of the borough and the consultant that we've been involved with this process since February, at least with knowing what's going on and being told, hey, we're planning on doing a thing. Here are the designs, here's when the meetings are, and so on. And I appreciate that. I see the suggestion that we put in about screening this public use, screening this public use from where we live, where we raise our kids, and so forth. I'm not saying that it's bad. I'm just saying it's nice to have a little bit of privacy and not have a parking lot that's kind of busy right next to your backyard. So I appreciate that. I'd like to add on to what a couple of other people have said about decision-making with regard to parking enforcement, traffic, signs that regulate whether or not people can smoke in the area, and say that I understand that this might be future compared to like the actual physical design of this spot, but to incorporate the opinions of residents, especially, well, not to privilege my own neighborhood, but people who live right next to that thing, when we say, hey, we are noticing a parking problem, or hey, we noticed that traffic is too fast, or that cars are having trouble turning around, and so forth, because we are paying very close attention to what will happen to this spot. So just to ask the borough to continue to take the opinions of the residents who are here, as well as the stakeholders who have been participating in this process since, I think, February. So thank you, and please keep doing that.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Yair. I think we should have some vendors in this meeting. I don't know how much you consulted them, so I want to join John and Gail. It should be just comfortable for the residents, if I was a vendor, just by looking this, I would never come and walk here because you can't, turn the truck, right, a 24-foot truck would have a problem. And then where do you park it after that? Today, I don't know if you were you in the farmer's market or carnival? I mean, they like to have their truck near so they can keep unloading and loading. If you were to, where do you envision them?
So the trees are blocking it, but we were showing space here where they can just pull up behind the tent. It's a 8-foot deep.
All right.
So they can pull up here, you can see them in the middle here. So not every single tent can be afforded that, but there is that potential.
Perfect. Okay. As long as, I just want to make sure that the vendors feel that they can do it, not just the residents, otherwise we come for an empty farmer's market.
We put in SU30 that can navigate this parking lot. Okay. So that's typical for your larger trucks.
So thank you.
Deputy Rainwater, Grand Street. For the interest of time, I'll just, small quick question. You show a left turn coming out. And people will be coming in. Is that wide enough? I just think that may be a traffic conflict. That should be a right turn out only people, one way in.
Yeah, this is wide enough. So this is 24 feet. So that's very typical.
That's wide enough, but people coming up on Third and people coming out, is that going to be a traffic conflict?
So this on this side, I believe both sides were showing 12-foot lanes. So 12-foot lanes is adequate for cars.
So people coming out of that parking lot while people are coming up Third?
People are coming up here. Yeah, they'd have to stop, allow them to go past, and then they could come.
I just think I can see it being a conflict that might be one way around.
Yeah.
Okay, now we're gonna go to Zoom because you have already spoken. So we're gonna get a chance for those who are attending on Zoom to ask their questions, and we'll come back.
So we're gonna invite the people who are watching at home. You've now got, you got 17 that have hung in at home.
Right, so we're gonna move to Zoom to those who are attending on Zoom.
And then now that everybody's had a chance to speak in person, but then if there's time, we'll allow a second round there. Is that what you were saying?
Yes.
Okay. So those of you at home, prepare. I'm gonna call on you in a moment. Give me 1 second. Paola Baez Haze, can you just state your name so we know you're there? Hello? Paola? I'm going to, the next person, looks like the next person is Randall Solomon. Can you state your name? Looks like you might.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, now we can.
Great. Hi, Randy Solomon, Felton Avenue. I want to echo, thanks and gratitude to everyone who's worked on this. It's been such a long time, and so I'm going to share my opinion, but it's definitely within the context of knowing how hard it is, the work that you're all doing. So two things jumped right out at me. I mean, in general, I'm really supportive of this move. I think it could be fantastic. The one thing that jumped out at me is seems like we're accepting a lot of constraints to the space to protect like 3 driveways for 3 houses. And the planner making the presentation said, we're trying to protect those neighborhoods over there. I just want to point out, like, those aren't neighborhoods over there. There's like literally 3 driveways. So we've already acquired 2 properties, and Aaron spoke earlier and said if we could just get that one more, that would change everything. If we can get all 3, it would be really great. So I understand cost is an issue, but these are big developments that are going in. I assume they're asking for pilots. Like, hopefully we can squeeze them as much as possible and get those properties, because that it really seems like it everything is revolving around that in a negative way. So I also wonder, like, where's the Christmas tree going to go? Like, I can't, where's all these different events where people gather going to happen? And the other thing is, and these two this next comment and the previous one relate. The fire lane seems like it's really compromising the functionality of the plaza a lot. Like it's not even really a plaza. It's just kind of like I don't know, a closed off street. You can't really program it with anything other than like folding chairs, it looks like. So and I note that like, fire trucks, like fire hoses can reach pretty far, right? I think of like a fire hose can reach like 150, 200 feet, which is the entire length of the plaza. So I just want to make sure that this is like a legal must-have kind of thing to have that fire lane and not just this is kind of what we want. And I know that you asked the fire department, and I definitely respect their opinion. But I know, for example, if you ask like a lawyer, is there legal risk? They'll be like, yes, there's legal risk. You shouldn't do it. And then like you'll never do anything. And if you ask a traffic engineer, like, everything revolves around making sure that the traffic can flow and nothing else can happen. So I just want to make sure that that's really, really necessary before we give in on that, because the plaza is already tiny, much smaller than I sort of visioned in my mind's eye when I was thinking it would move over there. And then having to have this like fire lane down the middle really changes the character of it. So that's it. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Great, thanks. I'll just quickly respond to where the Christmas tree is going. That's easy, and that's not, we could show where it could go. But I think that goes into that kind of event planning and where the markets and all that kind of are set up. The fire lane, we get it, and we push hard. I want everyone to know, like, no matter who it is, whether it's DOT, counties, we probably push harder than anybody else. We don't accept the first response, and it's probably why they don't like us as much, because there's always a way to do something better than what they're suggesting. When it comes to the fire lane, I mean, we asked a million times, we pushed 1,000 different ways, and it is what it is, unfortunately. So I think this, arrives at the best place for what we can do there. And again, we do push, so it's not just a kind of a rollover response. And they were great. We had good conversations, and we talked about a lot of different ways in which we could approach this. And so we landed where they're comfortable, both police and fire, which actually have conflicting, concerns about that. So I'll leave it kind of there.
Next up, Timothy McKinnon. Just confirm it's you on the line, please.
Yes, it's me. I wasn't sure you could see my name on this one. Hi, Tim McKinnon, 201 South 3rd, South 2nd. Just want to start by just saying I really appreciate the due diligence of everyone involved with the effort, to move the town forward. I know and definitely appreciate how much sustained collective and collaborative action that this has taken. I want to say, I like what I hear, but I have some really good questions here for the farmers market plan. Specifically, while, I think there's been a lot of work, and we saw that in the presentation, put into the built environment and integrating all the aspects of Highland Park, I think maybe perhaps there could be some more consideration on how to transfer the former, like, more organic sites, human elements, interactive and social infrastructure into the new space, and ensure that it retains the same atmosphere of fancy planning word propinquity and spillover advertisement and attraction from Main Street. So I think like the big thing is there's sort of looking at the plan, there's a lack of a kind of a centerpiece pavilion near Main Street or Raritan Avenue where like the focal point of that market can live, where like I think Randy was saying the Christmas tree and the menorah can go, and where concerts and contests and other events can be held. I think also another concern about that kind of spatial element is the breakup of the farmers market into kind of an L-shaped, discrete, somewhat disconnected space rather than one contiguous kind of holistic marketplace bazaar feeling. I think that the lack of many food trucks rimming the Raritan Avenue frontage, which I think is a lot of like adds to that speculative atmosphere from drivers by, and they get to say, hey, what's going on there? And it's kind of like having these cool food trucks they may have heard and seen. I think that brings people into the avenue more. If you have more of them on the front avenue, it just serves as a call to attention and advertisement for those driving by. Furthermore, I guess, some people on the call have been questioning the coexistence with new neighbors further up South Third, especially if we have not purchased some of the more near market properties that could serve to push that farmers market space further up that South Third Street area and kind of create a more holistic space. So that's really kind of my comments. But again, I really appreciate, I know all of you have worked really hard and I've been watching for years, and it's really great to see this coming to fruition.
Thanks.
Robert Hazy. Just state your name. When you're there.
Yes. Hi, good evening. This is actually Paola Baez and Robert Hazy. We are very excited about the redevelopment plan. And, we are right next to the Rite Aid parking lot, adjacent to where the connection between 4th and 3rd Avenue is going to be made or planned to be made. And we're wondering what is the project? What is the scope of work to protect the people that are living in this residential area where we're right in between 3rd and 4th, right next to the parking Rite Aid, where, we may have trash compartments and we may have bathrooms, porta potty or prefabricated bathrooms. So we want to understand, what is the township doing to protect the residents under that circumstance? Thank you.
I'm just getting Terry. I think this is going to be a combo question.
Yeah.
I'm hoping to understand where they're talking about. Is it here? Is it?
Yeah,
I'm not 100% sure.
She's on the property along the Rite Aid edge,
Okay.
probably further towards 4th.
Yeah. So I mean, for the purposes of what we've done, that's off the map. So we don't really have any sort of plans or anything like that past this boundary. So I think we can't really speak to that.
Right, and I guess what I've added, and there have been a couple questions, sorry, I'm sitting down. Been a long time. The Rite Aid property, which I want to come up with a new name because it's not Rite Aid anymore, but the parking area, all back there is owned by the same owner of the building, which is not Rite Aid. It's a private, and they're looking to get a new tenant in there. And they obviously are also worried about protecting that. They have concerns about protecting their tenant that's coming, hopefully sooner than later. We'll find out. And so we're negotiating at a minimum access through the property, but we can't guarantee a road. These are all things maybe to keep and kind of aspire to, should Rite Aid pursue, or the Rite Aid property pursue a full-scale redevelopment of their site. I think those kinds of things can absolutely come on the table. But right now, I believe the property owner is looking for a tenant for the existing building. And so somebody's leveraging something more out of that transaction, I don't think is realistic at this time, but we can certainly keep that future in mind. And certainly to the caller who lives nearby, I'd encourage you to reach out to me, and maybe I could talk to you a little more specifically about concerns related to your property, just to make sure I understand exactly where you're located. My information's all on the website, and I would happily either have a meeting with you here or on site just to walk you through. But right now, towards the 4th, there's really no changes contemplated to the parking area other than improvements, hopefully, that they will make to their parking area for their new coming tenant. And so I believe there's screening and things in place now that would be there moving forward. Let me see if here. Looks like that's the last of hands up at home in terms of people who haven't spoken yet. So Mayor, it's, if I could move.
It's 10 minutes to 9.
10 to 9, so I defer.
So I'm gonna, anyone in the public who needs to make a comment, we're gonna be looking to wrap up at this time. Okay, Saved by the Bell.
So, Peter Fuller, Great. So there was mention of, was it the fall, autumn festival? And when they had that at the current location in the current farmers market area, they brought in one of those stages, the portable stages. Would something like that be able to negotiate the turn into this parking lot?
It's a county stage, a standard county stage.
Yeah, I mean, it could be as easy, if it's going up here, you pull up on Raritan, you unload it and it's done. So a temporary stage is okay in terms of fire access because it's temporary, it's not fixed. So that would work.
But they would be able to negotiate the turns to get it in there and get it out of there.
If they have a trailer, I wouldn't recommend that they come up this way. But I think if they're going here or if they're going into the parking lot.
Yeah, I mean, it seemed to me, because they had a lot of people there that want to put it in there, in that part.
Right. Yeah, they could, I don't know what they would bring it on. If this access is here, which is how we were proceeding, whether they come in this way and make this turn or come in this way and drop, they can make that. Yep.
It looks like the previous caller has a.
Okay, this is the final one for tonight.
It looks like, it says Robert Hazy, and I believe it's Paola.
Yeah, this is Robert. Can you hear me?
Yes.
So I'm just kind of digging back, right, with the vacancy in the parking lot, right, and then we have our property kind of sits like 25% over the Rite Aid, and then the back is the back end parking lot, kind of butting against like South 3rd Avenue. What I'm just kind of trying to understand better is, what are the plans to kind of protect the integrity of the residents, right? The actual homeowners, right? Both on 3rd and also 4th with this redevelopment plan. Because I understand that the current tenant Rite Aid is out. The owner of the lot is trying to figure that out, right? As far as what they're going to do with, maybe some collaboration with the township. But, I'm just trying to understand, is there going to be, what's the township going to be doing for privacy? Potential overflow of, parking seems like it's the big theme for tonight. What are we looking to kind of protect the neighborhood, right? Separated from the redevelopment, right? What's that vision look like?
That's good.
I mean, we would love to hear your concerns more specifically. You heard there were some neighbors, we had some stakeholder meetings. I don't know if we caught your address in our outreach early on. If you had some specific concerns related to the plans we've shown today, it would be great to hear them. If you want to set up a time for me to kind of sit with you and talk through some of that, more than happy to do that. I think that might be the most productive way, especially we've been here a while. But I'm very interested in hearing your concerns. And we have heard from some of the adjacent immediately on the plaza, as well as, for example, we have a wall separating the parking court from the most immediate neighbor plan. So if there's some other accommodation, that is appropriate, we would certainly entertain it.
I think he was specifically mentioning the Rite Aid parking lot.
The Rite Aid parking lot is outside of the scope of the plaza, but I'd love to hear more about some of your concerns. And certainly as we talk to them about whatever happens in the Rite Aid spot, we could incorporate and try to address those concerns either through that or through this process. Would that make sense?
Yes, it does. I appreciate that.
Okay, great. And so please shoot me an email. We'll set up a time, but it has to be in January because I'm heading out.
Okay, yep, fair enough. And realistic. Thank you. Thank you very much. Yep, perfect.
Well, I want to thank everyone for coming and for the questions that you have. And if you have more, you can just reach out to Terry Matt, or any member of council with any questions that you may have, myself, and we'll incorporate that. We'll try to put together a Q&A from what we've heard, and obviously we have more work to get done. Stay tuned. We'll keep you posted. Happy holidays.